There's a quote that gets attributed to John D. Rockefeller all the time. Someone asks him, how much money is enough? And Rockefeller supposedly answers, just a little bit more. Whether the quote is perfectly sourced or not, the mindset is real. Because Rockefeller didn't just build wealth, he built an operating system for wealth. A set of structures so disciplined that more than a century later, the Rockefeller name is still attached to serious money, serious institutions, and serious influence. And the reason this matters is simple. Plenty of dynasties got rich. Most of them didn't stay rich. Some families spent their fortune into dust. Others fragmented through inheritance. Some got wiped out by bad bets, bad heirs, bad timing. But the Rockefellers, they engineered something different. Not just money, architecture. Let's start with the baseline and the number everyone repeats. Around 1913, Rockefeller's fortune is often estimated at roughly $900 million. Now here's where people get confused. If you adjust that using simple inflation, you don't get hundreds of billions. You get tens of billions in today's dollars. But if you adjust it by share of the US economy, meaning how powerful his fortune was relative to everything else, then yes, you can land in the hundreds of billions range. That's why Rockefeller is still often labeled the richest American in history, depending on the method you use. So the accurate takeaway is this: his fortune was enormous by inflation and almost unimaginable by economic share comparisons. Now here's where it gets interesting. Rockefeller didn't just strike oil and win. He faced a problem that destroys most fortunes: succession. Because the moment wealth passes down, it gets chopped up, taxed, spent, diluted, mismanaged, and within a few generations, it's gone. And Rockefeller understood something that most rich people don't. If you want a fortune to last, you can't run it like a pile of money. You have to run it like a system. First, there was reputation. By the early 1900s, Rockefeller had become a symbol of corporate greed in the public imagination. Ida Tarbell's reporting on Standard Oil helped turn him into the face of the robber baron era. His image was attacked relentlessly. Second, there was structure. Standard Oil was broken up in 1911. But the breakup didn't ruin him. It actually helped unlock value because shareholders ended up owning pieces of the successor companies. Rockefeller held shares across that ecosystem, and those holdings continued generating enormous income. And third, there was permanence. Rockefeller knew that even if he died rich, a fortune could still die with him, unless it was redesigned to outlive any one person. So he started converting personal wealth into institutions. The most famous of these was the Rockefeller Foundation, established in 1913 and endowed with sums that were massive for the time. The foundation became a permanent vehicle, one that could invest capital, compound over decades, and deploy money into long-term projects. And here's the important part. A foundation is not a personal bank account. It has strict legal rules, public reporting requirements, payout requirements, and limits on political activity. But it is something incredibly powerful. It's an entity that can outlive you. It can build institutions, it can shape research, it can fund universities, hospitals, public health programs, and scientific advances. The Rockefeller Foundation became deeply involved in public health and medical research. It supported work tied to efforts against diseases like yellow fever. It helped fund major public health education and infrastructure. It supported research ecosystems that contributed to the acceleration of modern medicine. And over time, that philanthropic footprint did something else. It transformed the Rockefeller name from villain into benefactor. But philanthropy was only one layer, because the real wealth machine wasn't just about giving money away. It was about professional management. This is where the concept that rich families understand and everyone else ignores comes in: the family office. A family office is a private wealth management operation built solely to serve one family. Accountants, lawyers, investment managers, tax planners, governance experts. Old money doesn't run on vibes. It runs on payroll. The Rockefeller family is widely credited with pioneering one of the earliest modern versions of this model in the late 1800s. An organized professional operation designed to preserve and grow family wealth across generations. Decades later, that machine became legendary through the Rockefeller family's offices at Rockefeller Center, famously associated with what insiders called Room 5600, one room, one headquarters, a command center for generational wealth. And what did that machine actually do? It solved the central problem of dynastic money, fragmentation, because if you leave wealth to individuals, it dies with individuals. So instead of wealth living in people, the wealth lives in structures, trusts, partnerships, holding companies, long-term investment pools, governance systems. Here's the concept most people miss: the difference between ownership and control. You can design structures where family members don't own everything personally, but the family still maintains continuity, access, and coordinated decision-making. That's the real secret. Not hiding money, not magic, not conspiracy, just systems. Now, modern dynasties took this even further. In the late 20th century, certain US states began allowing extremely long-duration trusts, sometimes called dynasty trusts, that can last for generations and keep assets from being hit repeatedly by transfer taxes. That's not something Rockefeller himself could have used in the same modern form in 1913, but it's the modern extension of the same logic. Keep wealth inside structures that outlive people, because structures don't die. And once you understand that, the math starts to make sense, not the fake math people throw around, real math. Let's talk compounding. If you invested $1 million in 1870, the year Standard Oil was founded, and then it compounded at 7% annually for roughly 150 plus years, you don't end up with a few billion. You end up with tens of billions. That's the power of compounding over a century without being constantly chopped apart by bad planning and family chaos. Now multiply that principle by Rockefeller scale wealth and add professional management. That's the machine. And this is where most wealthy families fail. They treat wealth as income, not capital. They spend principal. They build the mansions. They throw the parties. They live like the fortune is infinite. And then they wake up one day and realize the dynasty was just a moment. The Rockefellers enforced the opposite mindset: protect the core, live on the yield. Think in decades, not quarters. Now, did the Rockefellers stay a single, unified pile of money forever? No. Families spread out. Interests diversify. Some branches get richer than others. Some people cash out, some don't. But the Rockefeller model is still one of the best examples of what happens when you combine institution building, professional management, legal structuring, disciplined investing, and multi-generational governance. And there's one more layer, the one nobody wants to talk about: power. Because wealth isn't just money, it's access, it's relationships, it's institutional leverage. Rockefeller descendants didn't just inherit assets, they inherited networks. John D. Rockefeller Jr. sat inside major cultural institutions. David Rockefeller led one of the most powerful banks in the world and held roles in elite policy and financial networks. Nelson Rockefeller became Vice President of the United States. These weren't just jobs, they were nodes in a web that spans finance, politics, education, art, philanthropy. And when you control that web, you don't need to own everything. You just need access to everything. If a descendant wants to start a business, they can access capital through family structures. They can access expertise through professional managers. They can access relationships through institutional ties. That access is worth more than any trust fund, because it's not just money, it's opportunity on demand. Now, here's the part that should either terrify you or inspire you. This system is replicable. You don't need Rockefeller money to copy Rockefeller logic. Separate personal spending from long-term capital, centralized planning, use legal structures correctly, invest for the long horizon, build governance, prepare heirs, and if your wealth is large enough, build a family office or join a multi-family office that gives you similar capabilities. These aren't secrets. They're just strategies most people never learn because they aren't taught in school, and they aren't discussed publicly by the people who benefit from them. The Rockefellers didn't just get lucky. They didn't just strike oil and coast. They built financial architecture that transforms temporary wealth into durable dynasty. And once you see the architecture, you can't unsee it. You start noticing it everywhere. Every major family fortune runs on some version of this machine. Every billionaire with a family office, a foundation, and a network of trusts is playing a version of the same game, systematizing wealth so it survives the human life cycle. Most people look at billionaires and think they're just rich. They don't see the structures, they don't see the governance, they don't see the planning, they don't see the machine, but you see it now. So the question is, what do you do with that? Because understanding the system is step one. Step two is choosing whether you're going to build your own version scaled to your resources, or whether you're going to keep operating in the old paradigm where wealth dies with you. The Rockefellers made their choice over a century ago. They chose architecture, and the results are still visible today. If this changed how you think about money, hit subscribe. You can watch the news and hear about billionaires, or you can watch this channel and learn how the wealthy multiply their wealth and preserve it. See you next time.